The big story over the last week, I guess you could say, and we talked about it on Check Please on Thursday, was Mike Woodson and his ousting from Indiana University. Basically said, in not so uncertain terms, that he's retiring at the end of the year. So IU can begin the vetting process of trying to find their next head basketball coach. It was very ironic that on that same time, on this past weekend, Dusty May in Michigan show up. Dusty May, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. And before we talk about IU coaching search, I wanted to get, and you guys won't be able to hear this, but I want to play the sound of Dusty May was asked on potential interest in the Indiana opening, and this was his horrifically bad answer that's going to give a lot of hope to IU fans.
Dusty, many of these Indiana fans have made it clear they'd like you maybe as their next head coach. Would you have any interest in the job?
I mean, first of all, it's flattering when you have the path that I had and have. I'm still on that same path. It's it makes you feel good because what's your competitive advantage as a student manager that transferred in as a marginal Division II player? And you just think back and it's like, man, you really, all I did was show up with great energy and passion for this game and helping people every day. And because of that, I think people always saw something or believed in me. And then you get to this point. But that stuff's crazy. I mean, I love being at Michigan. I love our team. We're fighting like crazy. That's it. I mean, this place is my foundation, but I'm very, very happy at the University of Michigan. Came here to win a game and mission accomplished.
Do you have any message to Michigan fans that might be worried right now?
I mean, there's nothing I can say that's going to make this one way or the other. I love being at Michigan. That hasn't crossed my mind other than just what friends and family said. And to be honest, I've eliminated all that.
So that stuff's crazy. I love being at Michigan. I love our team. Indiana is my foundation, but I'm very happy at the University of Michigan. And then they go on to follow-up question to ask him, what do you say to Michigan fans that are worried? And he says, I don't think there's anything I can say to help that. I mean, I know every coach has to play the non-answer game in that situation, but my gosh, that's one of the worst non-answers I've ever heard from a coach that needed to deny having any interest in the job when it sounds like, okay, he might be interested in the job, or he could potentially use this as leverage. Now, TJ, we've interviewed coaches who've been in this exact situation a number of times. Where do you, after listening to that, I guess, in what I've passed along to you, where do you think that we stand on that front?
Man, it's such an impossible question to answer. Like, obviously he's going to be thinking about it, but he can't say that he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
The first answer was fine. It's then when you get to the follow-up, then when he has to start, the hamster wheel is turning, he's trying to figure out something else to say to affirm what he just said without saying absolutely no to Indiana. I always felt bad for those coaches in that situation because even if they flat out say no, and then if something happens, like, well, you were lying, a.k.a. John Calipari, I want to be in Memphis.
Okay.
Like, oh, yeah.
It always comes back to Calipari.
Shout Saban with the Alabama job, too. That was another famous one. That was hilarious.
So, obviously, we'll get into kind of, who are the realistic options for IU. But Eric Bossi, who covers college basketball and recruiting, his quote, which I think is a bit outlandish, Indiana's opening will be the most coveted position in the coaching carousel. So coveted, their last three hires were Tom Crean, Archie Miller, and Mike Woodson. So I don't know if that's completely true. But
okay, fans.
Okay,
it's gonna be the most. All the job openings, this could be the most coveted one. I don't think that's a far-fetched statement. No.
If I will be completely honest, and this is not me as a Purdue fan, I would be terrified to take that job unless you want to live off a buyout, because you've got to get the perfect guy in that situation. And it takes the perfect person that can play all the sides, whether it's with the alumni base, the boosters, the players, NIL, the board of trustees, any of the other big schmoozers you got to go for. It feels like you are set up to lose if you don't have the right mindset as a head coach at Indiana University.
And what's the expectation for the new coach? What is the expectation for Indiana? Like,
yeah,
are you like Final Four or bust? Are you just get us to the tournament and maybe win a couple games? What is the expectation? Because the bar is very low right now.
And that's the problem. So here's the problem that IU is facing. And again, this is from someone who talks to IU. I have many IU friends. I know I'm going to sound like I'm a big deal. I got a bunch of IU friends, but I think the realistic IU fan, which I think there's not many of them, but I actually talked to one yesterday who said you still got to call Brad Stevens and make him say no. I agree. He's going to say no. Brad Stevens is not realistic. In terms of expectations, he said, and I agree with him, I was like, the problem that IU has is you have the big money donors and all the fans that are expecting to relive the glory years of playing for national championships. And you can't do that right off the bat. That is an unfair start for anyone just jumping in, especially with IU's history over the last 20 years, where they have not gotten past a Sweet 16. You need to be more realistic with your expectations. For me, start off, find a way to get to the second weekend. They have struggled to do that. If you can focus on doing that, that's going to make the process so much more manageable for any coach coming in there. If you automatically say, oh, banners, we're playing for national championships here at IU or Blue Blood, you're set up to fail. You need to be realistic with your expectations. And if they do that, they can get back to the success of being a Final Four team. They have the funds. They have the resources. They have a alumni base that is desperate for a winner. They can do it. It can happen, but you have to be realistic, and I don't think that's possible for some of the people that are making the big decisions at Indiana University.
And that's fair, but also, too, I think there's a good... Okay, because they're not running out Woodson and Archie for losing the round 32 every year. Like, they've won one tournament game since 2017.
And that was last year, wasn't it? Or 2 years ago?
The Trace Jackson
Davis team, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So to me, I do think they get a guy in and they do make the tournament and lose in round 32 the first couple years. I like to think they'll be somewhat reasonable about it. But again, it's been so long since we've seen them have any sort of consistent... I'm not saying it'll be like that for 6 years. I think if they can just find someone that can at least just like break through. Just like the round 32, but I don't know, man. Like you said, because again, the way they've handled all this is poorly, by the way. The way they announced it before this, like this week before the game. And did you see Woodson? They said they told reporters to not ask him at all about his retirement.
They didn't make him available for media at all after the Michigan game.
That's crazy. And that's like, I think it makes Woodson look bad too. Like I think it's another issue. They just don't seem they ever handle anything correctly at all at the top.
So if you're a coach, why do you subject yourself to that? What? It's just like being, and not to say.
Hold on, where's my cash register? Cha-ching. That's all it is. Right. That's really it.
But like, more money, more problems, Robbie. Like,
I know.
You get into that, and it's just you set yourself.
So I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say I've thought about more. It's kind of like to me with all the stuff going down. It's almost like being like the Cowboys coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do you want to deal with Jerry Jones all the time?
Mm-hmm.
But you have all this pressure. You have this fan base that has unrealistic expectations. You have just a program or a school that thinks it's the 1980s, and they've been to a Final Four in 23 years. And coming from someone who, Nick and I, our mom's side of the family is all IU. I got my graduate degree at IU. I do somewhat have a thing for. I will always say this. I don't want to see IU win a national title. I'll be blunt about that. I do like when they're good. I think it's fun. And I like to see my mom happy and my late grandpa when he was happy. I like seeing them like cheering their butts off for IU. But it is an unrealistic thing, and they're just so stuck in the past. I'm 36. It's been my entire lifetime. They've not been good besides
been a
one
while.
run by Mike.
And we've said it before on this show, and I have said it. If you go back to recruiting the
Sorry, Joe Steele. Keep going, Rob.
if you go back to recruiting the state of Indiana and finding the best players in the state of Indiana, get those guys to build around your program. I'm not saying that those need to be your best players, but there's a reason why some of the best high school basketball players come from the state of Indiana. And if you go back to that mindset instead of just trying to go out and pay for the $2 million for a guy that's going to average 18 and 10 but not really care about the program, that is when IU will find a way to make it back. Because right now, it seems like the only guys that really care about being out there are Trey Galloway and Luke Goody.
Can we get something off the board, by the way?
Sure.
IU fans that listen to the show, you're not getting Brad Stevens.
Yeah, it's not going to.
So quit wishing for that. He likes to spend his summers at Lake Wawasee. This is knowledge from someone who knows it. You're not getting Brad Stevens, so get off that horse.
So okay, let's
make that clear.
And so, who is a realistic? Is Scott Drew a realistic name?
He did say no to Kentucky and Louisville last year, which I
Yeah.
know is Indiana ties, but like, does he really like he went to high school in Indiana all those years ago? Is that really the only connection? Because I know also his brother played at Valpo, his father coached at Valpo.
Did he go to Valpo? I honestly don't know.
I can't remember.
Maybe he did then as well.
So-
So I really don't know.
Yeah, he went to Valpo.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it comes back. From connecting the dots a little, it sounds like he wants to get back to Indiana, and he wants to be in that position. So that makes sense. I think the most realistic name and the guy that can get it jump started immediately is Chris Beard, and from all accounts, that one makes the most sense and seems the most realistic.
I agree, Robbie.